Mafia boss Julian Vance didn't believe in mercy. He believed in control. As the ruthless head of the Vance syndicate, Julian ruled the city like a shadow king. His empire wasn't built with contracts and boardrooms. It was built with fear, silence, and blood-stained loyalty. People didn't negotiate with Julian Vance. They obeyed. He lived high above the city in a glass penthouse, far removed from the streets where his name was whispered like a curse. His life ran on discipline. No weakness, no distractions. But for the past 3 weeks, something had disrupted his perfect order. Her name was Sarah. She was his maid, quiet, respectful, almost invisible. A black woman in her late 20s who cleaned his home with trembling precision. She spoke only when spoken to. She kept her eyes down. She never made mistakes, yet lately she had changed. She moved slower now, heavier. Her belly was unmistakable. 7 months pregnant, maybe more. Julian noticed everything. He noticed the way she winced when bending down, the way she pressed a hand against her lower back when she thought no one was watching. He saw pain behind her silence. "Everything acceptable, Mr. Vance?" she asked one afternoon, voice calm but eyes filled with fear. "Fine," Julian said coldly. But it wasn't fine. There were other odd things. Food disappearing. Julian often held private meetings with his men. Expensive catered meals would sit untouched. Sandwiches, pastries, imported cheeses. Normally, they were thrown away. Recently, they vanished. And then there was the strangest part. Sarah always left at exactly 5 p.m., not a minute late. Not because she was eager, because she had to. She moved like someone racing against collapse. Julian's instincts sharpened. People lied in his world. People stole. People betrayed. And Julian Vance did not tolerate betrayal. On a bitter October evening, curiosity overpowered logic. He watched from his balcony as Sarah exited through the service entrance. Instead of heading toward the subway, she turned left, deeper into the commercial district. Julian grabbed his coat. No driver, no bodyguards, just him. A mafia boss in a tailored suit, stalking his pregnant maid like a paranoid stranger. He kept distance, staying half a block behind. Sarah walked slowly, unevenly. Every step looked painful. Every few minutes, she stopped to lean against a building, breathing hard. Nobody helped. People passed her like she was invisible. 3 blocks later, she turned into an alleyway behind luxury stores. Julian froze. He knew this alley. He owned the building. It housed a designer boutique in the front and a loading dock in the back. Julian stepped closer, heart tightening. Sarah reached the dock. She didn't knock, didn't meet anyone. Instead, she pulled out flattened cardboard from behind a dumpster. Then a thin, worn blanket. She laid them down carefully, and with a soft groan, she sat. Julian's breath caught as she opened her bag. Inside was a wrapped sandwich, one from his own table earlier that day. She ate slowly, desperately, like it was a treasure. Then she leaned back against the wall and closed her eyes. She wasn't hiding something. She was surviving. Julian stared, frozen. His pregnant maid was sleeping on concrete, behind his own building. Julian's shoes crushed gravel as he stepped into the alley. The sound was small, but it sliced through the quiet like a gunshot. Sarah's head snapped up. For one stunned second, she just stared, eyes wide, mouth open, like she'd seen death walk in wearing a designer coat. Then the sandwich slipped from her hands. It hit the cardboard with a soft thud. Her body moved on instinct. She scrambled backward, pressing herself into the brick wall, arms wrapping around her belly as if she could shield the baby from him. "Mr. Vance," her voice cracked. I wasn't doing anything. I'm just resting. I'll leave right now, please. Please don't call the police." Police. The word landed wrong. Julian Vance didn't call police. Police called him when they dared to, but Sarah didn't know that kind of power. Or maybe she did, and that was why she was terrified. She tried to stand. Her swollen ankles wobbled. Her balance was off. She stumbled, one hand grabbing at the wall. Julian took 3 steps forward fast. Not to hurt her. Without thinking, he reached out to steady her. She flinched away from his touch so hard it was like he'd raised a weapon. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, shaking. I know I can't be here. I'll go. I'll go right now. Sit down," Julian ordered. His voice wasn't loud, but it was absolute. Sarah's breath hitched, her eyes filled with tears. She hesitated like she was waiting for punishment. "Sit down, Sarah." Slowly, she sank back onto the cardboard, trembling violently. Julian looked around. The setup was pathetic. Cardboard, 1 thin blanket, a cheap plastic bottle of water, a worn backpack, the half-eaten sandwich. This wasn't a secret life. This was desperation with no place to hide. "How long?" Julian asked, staring at the concrete like it had betrayed him. Sarah's eyes dropped to her hands. Her fingers were rough from work, the nails short, chipped. 3 weeks, she whispered. Julian's jaw tightened. 3 weeks you've been sleeping here, while pregnant. "It's safe," she said quickly, like she had to justify it before he decided she didn't deserve it. "The security guard knows me. He lets me stay if I'm gone before 6 a.m. It's better than the shelter." Her voice went smaller. "The shelters are full. Or dangerous." Julian's stomach clenched. She swallowed hard, looking away. "I can't risk losing the baby in a fight." Julian's chest tightened in a way he didn't recognize. He'd seen men beg for their lives. He'd watched enemies cry. It never moved him. But this wasn't weakness. This was endurance. "Where's your home?" he asked. "Your apartment? Your family?" Sarah wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing tears across her cheek. "My husband, Marcus, died in July." Julian's throat went cold. July. He remembered she'd asked for time off. He had approved it with one word, but no questions, no interest. Just a file, note. "And after that?" Julian asked, quieter now. She breathed out shakily, like each word cost her. "I got evicted." Julian stared. Sarah's voice cracked. "After the funeral, I had nothing left. Then the rent went up. $600. They said it was market rate. They gave me 30 days. Julian's eyes sharpened. "Which building?" Sarah whispered. "Cedar Arms, 4th Street. Julian went still, because Cedar Arms belonged to him. Not just him. His syndicate. His money laundering property line. His signature. His decision. Julian's breath came out rough. He didn't whisper it. He couldn't. "I did this." Sarah looked up, confused. Then her face shifted as realization crept in, slow and brutal. What do you mean?" she whispered. Julian didn't move. His shadow stretched long across the concrete. "I own Cedar Arms," he said. The words sounded wrong in an alley. Too clean, too sharp, too final. Sarah's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes searched his face like she was hoping he'd take it back. Julian swallowed hard. "Not publicly, not on paper, but yes, it's mine. My syndicate bought it in August. It's August." Sarah stared at him like he'd slapped her. Her hands tightened over her belly. "You," she breathed. "You're the reason." Julian's jaw clenched. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to blame someone else. A manager, a lawyer, a system. But in his world, excuses were for weak men. And he was the one who ordered it. "I signed off on the rent increase," he said, voice tight. I saw the numbers. It looked profitable. Sarah's eyes glistened. Not rage, not screaming, just a quiet kind of heartbreak that hollowed her out. I wrote a letter, she said. Julian blinked. A letter? To management. Her voice trembled. I explained everything, that I was pregnant, that my husband died, that I was working, that I just needed time. She swallowed, forcing the words out through pain. I begged them for an extension, even a month. Julian felt heat crawl up his throat. I never saw it. Sarah let out a shaky laugh that wasn't funny at all. Of course you didn't. Julian's hands curled into fists. My people filter those things. They keep problems away from me so I can focus. Sarah's eyes flashed. Focus on what? More money? The question was quiet, but it cut deeper than any threat. Julian's stomach turned. He remembered the meeting. A lieutenant had spread out paperwork on his dining table. Not eviction notices, business projections, a neat spreadsheet, clean columns, numbers like bullets. If we increase rent 20%, the man had said, the low-income tenants will disappear on their own. We renovate, new demographic, higher profit, less trouble. Julian had signed without blinking. Because in his world, trouble was always eliminated. Now he was looking at trouble, not on paper, in flesh and blood. A pregnant woman who scrubbed his floors, sleeping on concrete behind a building he owned because he wanted a better margin. Julian stared at the thin blanket, the cardboard, the dropped sandwich. His voice cracked in a way that startled even him. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. Sarah's laugh came again, bitter. Tell you? Mr. Vance, do you know what men like you do to people who complain? Julian's eyes hardened at the truth in that. Sarah continued, her voice breaking. I've seen how you look at people. Like we're replaceable. Julian flinched, because she was right. He had built an empire on replaceable. He stared at her, and for the first time, he didn't see staff. He saw a widow. He saw someone fighting to keep her baby alive. He saw someone too proud, or too scared to let him see her ruin. The wind swept through the alley. Sarah shivered. Julian stepped closer, instinctively blocking the wind with his body. Get your things, he said. Sarah's eyes widened. Sir? Pack your bag, he repeated. We're leaving. She panicked instantly. No, please, Mr. Vance, I can't lose this job. If you fire me, I have nothing. I'm not firing you, Julian snapped. Not at her, at himself. His voice dropped, low and dangerous, like a promise. But you are not sleeping here. Not tonight. Not ever again. Sarah stared at him, trembling. Julian held out his hand. Come with me. Sarah hesitated, staring at Julian's hand like it was a trap. His fingers were clean, rings heavy, skin untouched by work. Her own hands were rough, dry, marked by chemicals and hours. For a moment, pride fought survival in her eyes. Then she looked down at her belly, and she took his hand. Her grip was light, cautious, like she expected him to change his mind the moment she stood. Julian lifted her gently. She was heavier than she looked, exhausted in a way that went beyond the pregnancy. Her body swayed, and Julian instinctively steadied her. This time, she didn't flinch. Can you walk? He asked, voice quieter. Sarah nodded, but her face tightened. I'll try. We'll go slow, Julian said. And he meant it. He didn't rush ahead like he always did. He didn't walk like a king with servants behind him. He stayed beside her, matching her pace, blocking the wind with his shoulder whenever it cut too sharp through the alley. The city kept moving around them. People, cars, neon, noise. But Sarah moved like she was carrying the whole world inside her. Every few steps she paused, breathing hard. Julian felt something ugly twist inside him. He had sent men to the hospital for disrespect. Yet he'd let this woman clean his floors while her body broke. They reached the building. The lobby was warm, polished, glowing with wealth. Marble floors, gold accents, a silent fountain. Sarah's boots left faint dirt marks. She noticed immediately. She tried to step smaller, like she wanted to erase her presence. Julian watched her shoulders tighten, watched her prepare for humiliation before it even arrived. And it did. The concierge looked up. His gaze landed on Sarah's worn cardigan, her tired face, her swollen belly. Disdain flashed across his expression like a reflex. "Mr. Vance?" he said, stepping forward quickly, voice smooth. "Is everything all right? Do you need me to escort her out?" Sarah froze. That one sentence confirmed every fear she'd ever swallowed. Her fingers tightened on her bag strap. Her eyes dropped, bracing. Julian didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone went cold enough to turn marble to ice. "If you speak to her with anything less than total respect," Julian said, "you will be unemployed by sunrise." The concierge's face drained of colour. Julian didn't even look at him again. "Open the elevator." "Yes, sir." The doors slid open. Sarah stepped in as if she expected an alarm to sound, as if she didn't belong in the same air. Julian stepped in beside her. The ride up was silent. Sarah stared at her shoes. Julian stared at the numbers rising. He remembered every time he told himself empathy was weakness. He wondered how many people had paid for that belief. The doors opened into the penthouse. Glass walls, city lights, art that cost more than most homes. Sarah stopped at the entrance, overwhelmed. Her eyes moved across the space like she was afraid to touch anything with her gaze. Julian led her down a hallway to the guest wing, a section of the penthouse no one used. He opened a door. Inside was a suite. King bed, soft lighting, thick rugs, a private bathroom with heated floors. Sarah stood in the doorway like she'd been shown heaven and didn't trust it. "Bathroom's there," Julian said. "Clean towels, hot shower." Sarah's voice trembled. "Mr. Vance, I can't stay here. It's not right." Julian's jaw tightened. "What isn't right," he said, stepping closer, "is that I have 5 empty bedrooms, and you've been sleeping on concrete behind my building." Sarah's eyes filled again. Not tears of panic. Tears of relief she'd been holding back for weeks. Julian softened, just slightly. "Lock the door if you want," he said. "You're safe here." Sarah looked at the bed like it might disappear if she blinked. And Julian, the feared boss of the city, realised something that unsettled him. He had never truly seen anyone until tonight. Sarah didn't move for several seconds. She stood in the guest suite doorway, clutching her backpack like someone might snatch it away and remind her this wasn't for her. Julian watched her carefully, like he was handling something fragile and explosive at the same time. "You can put your things down," he said. Sarah's lips parted. She looked at the bed again, then the carpet, then the bathroom light spilling warmly onto the floor. I don't know what to do," she admitted, voice barely audible. Julian's throat tightened. "Take a shower, eat, sleep." Simple instructions, but for Sarah it sounded like fantasy. She stepped in slowly, as if the room might reject her. Julian turned to leave, then paused. "I'll have food sent up," he said, "something warm." Sarah's eyes lifted. "Sir, please don't argue," Julian said, but not harshly. "Just let someone take care of you for once." He left her there and walked back into his own living area. The penthouse felt different now, not cleaner, not bigger, just emptier. Julian grabbed his phone and dialed. Not a public number, not a secretary, a man who answered on the first ring. "Yeah," the voice said. "Get me everything on Cedar Arms," Julian snapped. "Tonight, Evictions, rent increases, complaints, letters, all of it. There was a pause. Boss, it's late. You've got 20 minutes. Click. Julian paced. His mind replayed Sarah's words. I wrote a letter. In his world, letters didn't reach the top. They died in the hands of people paid to protect him from inconvenience. He went to the kitchen, poured himself a drink, then shoved it aside untouched. He didn't want numbness. He wanted clarity. A knock sounded about an hour later. Julian opened the door to find one of his men holding a thin file. Here. Julian snatched it and walked to the table. One page fell out first, a copy of a letter, handwritten, dated late August. Sarah's name at the top. Her words weren't polished. They weren't legal. They were human. Please, I am pregnant. My husband passed away in July. I am employed. I can pay my current rent. I just need more time. I have nowhere safe to go. Julian stared so long his eyes stung. Below it was a stamp. Received. Then another note. Denied by yes. Automated policy. Automated. He'd used that word like it was harmless. Now it sounded like a weapon. Julian's fist slammed the table. The glass on the counter rattled. His man flinched. Boss? Julian didn't answer. He grabbed his phone again. Bring me Collins, he said into the line. Who? The property manager. The one running Cedar Arms. Bring him to me. Now. Boss, it's 2 a.m. I don't care if it's his funeral. Bring him. He hung up and stared out at the city lights. Somewhere down there, people slept on concrete. Because he told himself it wasn't his problem. A soft sound behind him. Julian turned. Sarah stood in the hallway. Her hair was damp. Her face was clean. She wore a robe from the guest closet, oversized on her. But her eyes were still cautious. Like safety was a thing that could vanish in a second. Mr. Vance, she said quietly, I don't know how to pay you back for this. Julian walked toward her, slowly, carefully, as if he didn't want to scare her. You don't, he said. Sarah blinked. Sir? Julian held up the letter. I found it, he said. The one you wrote. Sarah's breath caught and her hand flew to her mouth. Julian's voice turned rough. Tomorrow, he said. We fix everything. He didn't soften the promise. He made it like an order. I'm giving you your home back, not as rent, as yours. And the people who ignored you, they're finished. Sarah's knees wobbled. Julian stepped closer. You hear me? Tears slid down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered. But why? Julian's eyes burned. Because I finally saw what my power has been doing, he said, and I'm done being blind. Morning came sharp and grey. Julian didn't sleep. He stood in his penthouse office with the file open, Sarah's letter on top like a verdict. Every sentence felt like it had been written in blood. At 8 a.m, Collins arrived. Not escorted politely. Dragged. 2 of Julian's men walked him in like a warning. Collins was a well-dressed coward with slick hair and a smug face that fell apart the moment he saw Julian's eyes. Mr. Vance. Boss. I didn't know you'd be here. Julian slid the letter across the desk. Collins glanced at it, confused, then paled as he read Sarah's name. This was handled by policy, Collins said quickly. Automated process. No exceptions. Julian leaned forward. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of graves. You denied a pregnant widow who begged for time, Julian said. Then you forced her onto the street. Collins swallowed. Sir, rent optimization is standard. Market rates. Julian's hand slammed down hard enough to make Collins flinch. Don't say market like it's a god, Julian hissed. You're not a businessman. You're a parasite hiding behind paperwork. Colin stammered. We can fix it. We can offer her a unit. Julian's smile was cold. No. He stood. You're fired, Julian said, and you're lucky, that's all. Collins opened his mouth. Julian lifted a finger. Leave before I remember what kind of man I am. Collins didn't argue. He rushed out like a man escaping a burning building. Julian turned to his lieutenant. Starting today, Julian said, Cedar Arms evictions stop. Rent increases stop. Every tenant who got pushed out, track them down. Offer return contracts at the old rate. Anyone with hardship gets a case review, real review by humans, not machines. The lieutenant hesitated. Boss, that's a lot of lost money. Julian's stare cut through him. Then we'll earn it another way, Julian said, but not by crushing widows. Silence, then the lieutenant nodded. Yes, boss. Julian walked to the guest wing. Sarah opened the door slowly, like she still expected to be told to leave. Her face was calmer today, but her eyes carried the same caution. Julian held out a folder. In here is the deed, he said. Cedar Arms, your unit, your name, no rent, no landlord. It's yours. Sarah's hands shook as she took it. I don't understand, she whispered. People like me don't get things like this. Julian's jaw tightened. You should, he said. You worked, you paid, you lost everything and still showed up every day to clean my home. Sarah's eyes filled. And your job, Julian added, is secure. Your pay doubles, full medical coverage, prenatal care. And when the baby comes, you take the time you need. Sarah made a sound, half sob, half disbelief. Why? She asked again, voice cracking. Why are you doing this? Julian stared past her, at the soft bed behind her, at the warmth she'd been denied. Because I built my name on fear, he said quietly. And last night I realized fear doesn't build a home. It only destroys them. 3 months later, when baby Marcus arrived, Julian wasn't in a meeting. He was in the hospital waiting room, sitting stiff in an expensive suit like he didn't belong there. When the nurse placed the sleeping newborn in his arms, Julian looked down and felt something break open inside him. His empire had built towers, but Sarah had built life out of pain and courage. And for the first time, Julian Vance understood. Power meant nothing if you never used it to protect.